Welcome to the #InvestThis podcast, where the secrets for real estate investing are revealed. Now, here's your host, Scott Bauer.
And welcome everybody to the 41st episode of the #InvestThis podcast. I am your host, Scott Bauer. And today, super happy to have Trevor Mauch with us here with InvestorCarrot. Trevor, how you doing?
Good, man. How you doing? Appreciate the invite, dude.
I am doing well, man. I'm doing really, really well. A little bit about Trevor. He cut his teeth in real estate in college, and through years of trial and error, he learned how to generate leads online effectively through inbound online marketing in the tune of 84,000 plus real estate related leads and counting, which is pretty impressive. He leads the Carrot team and focuses on helping members get the results they want. But away from business, Trevor loves mountain biking, golfing, spends most of his time with his wife and 3 young kids. So, pretty exciting, Trevor. Sounds like you have a fun life.
Dude, I think from the outside in, everything always looks amazing, right? It's like the whole Instagram kind of thing. But no, I'm very grateful. Amazing family. The company we've been blessed to build here, just so grateful for it. And it's fun, man. It's not easy. I'm sure we'll get into some of the stuff as we go about building businesses and how you do that as entrepreneurs and stay present and stay, humble and also just stay grateful. But it's fun, man, for sure.
So, yeah, we'll definitely dive right into that. I think that's a good place to start. You started in college. I know what I was doing in college, and it wasn't sitting at a computer trying to get inbound leads, but talk us through that a little bit. What did that look like, and how did you really get started?
Yeah, dude. So I grew up in a pretty decently entrepreneurial family. So, I guess lucky kind of hit the lottery there. Now, I wasn't born into one. The cool thing is I got to see my parents struggle financially, really, really struggle. And then their way out of it was starting little small businesses where we grew up in Klamath Falls, Oregon. So, I got to see where we didn't have the money to do certain things. My dad got laid off from his job. So my mom goes out and starts a company to help people do weddings and parties and stuff. And it was inside of our house. So I saw that. I saw the work ethic. And then I saw my dad go out there and take a chance and start his own company. And then it failed. He had his business partner just pull the rug out from underneath him, booted him out of the company that he had started, thinking my dad would just tuck his tail between his legs and go away. And he started up a competing business 2 blocks away and he crushed him. And so I got to see that growing up. And so then getting into college and stuff, I kind of had that paradigm where I knew that other things were possible. I knew that I could go out and get a job if I wanted to, which there's nothing wrong with that at all. Like we need amazing people to work for us, right? So getting a job is not a bad thing. But then I also saw the other side of things where I'm like, but there's this other side where I can, if I want to, go out there and create my own destiny. I can really choose to create something that I run. It's not easier. I think a lot of people look at it as like this easy, amazing lifestyle, sit on the beach with your computer thing. There might be days like that, maybe, but in general, it's not that way. But so I started my first company in college. Actually, thought I wanted to be a landscaper, and was doing landscaping jobs. And I was like, I love the design of landscaping, but I realized pretty quick, I'm like, I don't want to do the grunt work anymore. And at that time, I didn't want to build a team of people. And so I go, well, let me figure out something else to do. So then I had an amazing professor in college, Ari DeGroot. He was an attorney and a real estate investor. And I kept on hearing him talk about business law in our really, really boring business law classes. He made it more exciting though, about how he was leveraging business law and real estate investing. I'm going, man, that guy, it seems really interesting. He's passionate about what he talks about. And when people are passionate about what they talk about, then you get excited about it. It's exciting. And so I'll fast forward the journey there in college, but I thought I wanted to be an attorney and real estate investor, just like Ari. I went out and bought a 4-unit apartment building, just straight up like infomercial style, none of my own money, all that kind of stuff. I still own that one today. And I studied hard to be an attorney, bombed the LSAT twice, like the worst you can get. Nice. And that kind of charted my path that I didn't know what I was going to do, but I'd graduate college and figure it out later.
Yeah. Gosh, where to start? I think that there are 2 types of, you're right. When it comes to being an entrepreneur or being an entrepreneur within a business, because not everybody's cut out to be an entrepreneur and should own a business, right? Because it is not easy work. lots of long hours, lots of days and hours where you're not getting paid for your time directly, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not everybody can withstand that and withhold that type of pressure. And especially over the long term. I don't know what the exact stat is, but there's a very high percentage of companies that go out of business, within the first 3 years, and even higher percentage after the first 5 years, and that much higher after 10, right? Because it's the longevity of it. And, so not everybody's cut out to be that way, but for those of us that are, right, you found a niche within the business. So you had this professor that talked about it. It piqued your interest. You looked into it some more and realized that maybe this is the route that you wanted to go down. So let's talk about that. I mean, so you decided that being an attorney wasn't for you, which I don't blame you. But the real estate side was. And so how did the leads come in, or how did you figure out, did you look at it from an upper level picture saying, okay, well, to do real estate, you have to have leads. So how do you generate those? Or let's talk about that.
Yeah, man, I wish I would have. Honestly, wasn't that smart. So I bought that first 4-unit building, and I needed tenants. And at that time, I'm like, I don't want to have to go out and get a property manager. I'm going to manage this thing myself. So what I had started to do was learn how to get tenants online. So you start with easy stuff, Craigslist, things like that. And then I eventually built a little website and started getting tenant leads and kept on buying properties and things. But then my wife and I, we moved to Portland after college. We got married and we moved to Portland, Oregon for her master's degree. And that's kind of where I really learned the online marketing side of things. Cause Scott, I had never really done any online marketing at all. I was a pretty crappy marketer, to say the best. Like I got a marketing degree in college, but you don't learn any real marketing in college. And so when we headed to Portland, I kind of gave myself that year. I said, okay, what's the worst that can happen? I kind of like figured out that I could flip the risk profile that was way different than most of my friends, where they felt it was more risky to go out and do what I was doing, which was not get a job and try to make this entrepreneur thing work. I felt what they were doing was way more risky because it was a guaranteed result. For them, it was a guaranteed result to go out and get a job that's going to pay them $55,000 out of school and maybe cap out at 75. That's a guaranteed life that they'd created for themselves, pretty much. Hey, my life is going to work within this box, and you're not going to see a whole lot of variance. And for me, that was way more risky. I didn't want that in life.
Absolutely.
And so I flipped that risk profile and went, okay, what's the worst case scenario? What's the worst thing that can happen? That's one thing I always do whenever I'm kind of scared of doing something. I go, what's the worst case scenario? Usually the worst case scenario isn't as bad as you think it's going to be. Absolutely. So for that case up in Portland, the worst case scenario was I didn't figure out this entrepreneur thing. I couldn't pay my bills. I'd get evicted out of our apartment, which is going to take a little bit of time. Like they can't evict me that day. So it's going to take like a month. I don't know. And then I'd probably have to move back in with my parents here in Oregon, which isn't that bad. Like they've got an extra bedroom. I could move back in with them. And I don't care if I'm 23 saying that or 33. Like at the end of the day, y'all, the worst case scenario isn't that bad. And then I could go get a job. It's like, okay, cool. I tried the whole thing. Didn't work for me. And worst case, move back in with my parents, get a job. And then it was just like it never happened. Okay. But the flip side of it is, and this is where flipping your risk profile is important. Look at your worst case and then look at the other side of it and go, what's the guaranteed result if I don't do this? What's guaranteed going to happen if I do not take a chance on myself? And that scared me way more than the worst case scenario did.
Amen to that, man.
It scared me way more. I'm like, I don't want what will likely happen if I just go get a job and settle into that way of life, because I see what it did to friends. I see what it did to family members. And I'm not saying you can't find an amazing job. You can. We have great jobs here at Carrot. But for me, I think just being an ambitious person, you're not content with being content.
That's 100% very true. And I think that worst case scenario is a big tip for all the listeners out there, because there's a lot of things that each and every one of us go through our head about decisions that need to be made, right? Mm-hmm. On a constant basis, it's almost every day you have to make decisions about something.
Yep.
As an entrepreneur, that's absolutely the case. But, when you're looking at different options and different scenarios, to think what's the worst case that could possibly happen, I think that's a very big tip, because it's really not that bad. Right? You're not going to die. There's always alternatives. At the end of the day, from a business standpoint, you can always go get a job. even if it's temporarily, right?
Yep.
So that's pretty huge. Okay.
And then the key, just so people get this, the key to that framework for me is think of worst case. That's pretty common though. Right. What I did that a lot of people don't do, and I want more people to do, is then think of the opposite: is what's 100% guaranteed going to happen if I don't take this chance. Like I said, that part is what really solidifies it for me. So for you guys, worst case, and then flip around, what's 100% guaranteed going to happen if you don't take this chance? And this could even be, let's say you already have a business and the market's shifting around you and you're going, man, I've got to completely change my business model. I would do the same thing there too. What's the worst that can happen? And then what's 100% guaranteed going to happen if you don't do that? Literally an hour before this, that we're recording this call, actually 30 minutes, I just signed papers for a big, multi six-figure wire transfer to buy an asset that we're going to be buying. And I had to go through the exact same thing, man. It's like, what's worst case scenario? What's more likely? But then what's 100% guaranteed going to happen if I don't do this? Because it's a branding move. We're buying a big asset that's going to help us solidify Carrot as a brand. And so I'm like, I don't want that. Like, if I don't do this, this is going to happen. I don't want that. It's worth it for me to pay that just for that.
That's huge, man. That's exciting. And once again, that's a huge tip. I mean, that's something that, like I said, people always have to think about and talk about reinventing your business. I mean, right now where I'm at, we're making a shift. I just made a decision this last week that, I kind of was going off. We started buying some apartment buildings and whatnot, but that took me away from my primary business. It took me away from what got me to where I'm at today. And I kind of lost sight of that to an extent. And so I've made the decision to lay off on the multifamily side for a little while and really get serious and very focused about, building out our single family business even more than it is now.
Cool.
I had to let a couple people go or hiring a couple new people, but this is all part of it. Right. And, that you just gotta play with what the cards that you get dealt. Right.
Yep. I love it.
So when it comes into now, you decided that finding online leads was kind of your path that you were going to go down. Now, how did you get to Carrot? Where did Carrot come from, for one? It's a great name, but where did it come from?
Yeah, man. So after we moved to Portland, I was probably at that, I think I was like 23 maybe at that time. I was doing marketing for a mortgage company that my uncle worked for, because in that first year, man, I didn't have any money. I made like $12,000 or $13,000 that year. And it was, I had some passive cash flow coming from the properties, but all that money just stayed in the property account, so I wasn't tapping into that at all. And so he came into the office one day and I was helping him with, I was cold calling Craigslist stuff, man, for the mortgage stuff. I was putting together marketing pieces. I was doing all kinds of stuff, learning how to be a marketer essentially. And he walks in one day and he points at the computer screen. He says hey, do this search on Google, mortgage brokers in Portland or something like that. And he goes, how do I get my site like right there, at the top of Google? He goes, can you do that? I go, man, I have no clue how to do that, but I'll learn it. And so that would have been 2007, about 2007 that I'd really dug in, Scott. And I'm like, man, I'm going to figure out how Google works. I'm going to figure out how you get a website here. And then I figured out how to do that. And you do it with good content. We can talk about that later. And then I'm like, oh shoot, people are on on the websites, but it's not converting. So then I started to dive into conversion rate optimization and human psychology and science and split testing. And that was kind of my path the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And even through today, where everything that we do is based on science and math. And we always go with the results. We always go with the data and never with emotion. So once I figured out how to get people to a website with content and setting up a website in a way that Google likes it, and then I learned how to get them converted into a lead. Then after that, I was like, okay, now how do I scale this stuff up? How do I now stack on a new lead source and a new lead source? And you start to get this predictable, consistent momentum building lead machine. And so I had started a publishing company in the real estate space during that time and leveraged all the skill sets to do that. Did a lot of consulting for real estate investors, real estate agents, guys building private money funds. I was driving all of their leads at that time for private lenders and stuff. And I got burnt out in 2012, man, with all of that stuff, with my consulting company, with the publishing company. We did really, really good financially. It was kind of, you look from the outside in. I'm in my mid-20s making really, really good money and, sitting at home working, and people think that's a dream. And man, I just wasn't loving it. I'd wake up in the mornings, not wanting to do the job that I had created for myself. And that's not a good feeling, because
that's a huge point, man, because most people out there, until you have it, but most people think that money is the access to happiness, right?
Yep.
That if I just had more money, then my life would be better. If I just had more money, then everything would be better. And that's so far from the truth, because like you just said, you were making a ton of money doing great things, whatever it was, but you weren't happy doing it.
Mm-hmm.
The important part is that you want to be happy with what you're doing, and then be happy with what you have today. And then, when you get additional money on top of that, you'll be that much happier, right? But it's not chasing the money. You never want to chase the money.
Dude, it's so hard too, because like you'll listen to podcasts like this, or you'll see someone post on Facebook or Bigger Pockets, or you're in a mastermind. Man, dude, the last 3 weeks, so I've been out of town in 3 different states in 3 weeks. I don't normally travel like this. This is just like is an anomaly of a month. I crammed it all in 1 month just to get it done with. I've been at 3 masterminds in 3 weeks. One in Silicon Valley, like literally in the boardroom with the CEO of Twilio, a $6 billion company. Like, we're there, talking with him and what he's doing. It's really easy when you surround yourself with people doing bigger things to go, oh my gosh, I thought I was doing some really cool stuff. And now you put yourself in that room, and all of a sudden you start to have these thoughts of, am I doing enough? Should I push harder? And it's dangerous. It's really, really dangerous. And so, during that time when I was making probably mid to low 6 figures as a mid 20-something year old guy, and being able to travel anywhere I wanted to. We had a couple kids at that time. We have 3 amazing kids, 4, 6, and 8 right now.
Congrats, man. That's huge.
Thanks, man. And I found myself, like, so waking up in the morning, not wanting to do the work that I had created for my own job. And at that time is when the idea for Carrot had come up. And at the end of this call, I know during your lightning round, you ask a few questions, and I'll kind of plant a seed for my favorite book. I actually found it during that time of my life, and I'll tell you guys at the end of this call, so hang on. But it completely changed my life. It's the simplest book. I've only read 16 pages of the book ever, and I've probably sent it to 200 people. And so hang on here, and I'll tell you what that is at the end of the call.
I'm excited for that, man.
Yeah. So at that phase, man, I just really had to like pare everything down. I went, okay, I'm doing so many things, and the whole serial entrepreneur kind of syndrome kicked in heavy, because when you start to have success, you think, man, well, I can do anything now. Well, shoot, I'm having success here, and here's another opportunity that popped in. I can do that. Here's another opportunity that popped in. I can do that. And you think that by turning opportunities down, that you shouldn't. I mean, you think you shouldn't be turning opportunities down, and
you're losing out on opportunity, right? I mean,
exactly. So I had stacked up all this stuff. I owned like 4 or 5, 6 different companies, all of them doing decently mediocre. And I wasn't working within what people call your unique genius, or unique ability, or your genius zone, whatever you want to call it. And that ended up being the nexus of what would create the environment for my brain to even accept the idea for Carrot coming out of there. And I sold my shares in most of those companies. Sounds fancy. They weren't big sales. Like, they were getting away from them. One of my business partners, we do 700,000 or 800,000 a year. I'm like, dude, you just name the price, I will accept it. There's no negotiation. The price was way lower than it was worth, way lower than I thought. And I just said yes with a smile, so I could mentally separate and move on. And I still had a few dozen investors that had some websites up for, because over the years, people saw what I was doing. Like, hey, can you set up a website for me? Can you set up a website for me? And it started off with private lender websites, actually, for private lenders. And so I had several dozen websites up, and that was the last thing that I had to kill, Scott. Like, that was the last thing. I was just trimming everything down. And it was just sitting here, and people were paying me like $10 a month for hosting, which is the worst business model ever. Like, don't ever do that. And I was just going to hack it off and give people their website files and send them on their way and say, hey, I'm sorry, but if you can go find another web host to put these on, awesome. And then a buddy of mine walked into my office here in Roseburg. By that time, I had my entrepreneur co-workspace here that we started in 2010. And he's a contractor. And he said the same story, like oftentimes history repeats itself. The same story that the mortgage broker, my uncle, walked into my office in 2007 and asked. He said, pull this up in Google. How do I get ranked there? The thing is, this time I knew the answer. I knew how to do it. The problem was I didn't have the mechanism to say, hey, Casey, I know how to do it. And here's the person who can go help you. Because I didn't want to do it. And I didn't know any web developer personally that I could refer him to that could actually build something that worked really well in Google, that Google loved, that converted the visitor into lead at a high rate, that was amazing on mobile. I didn't know someone who could build that personally. And so I looked at it and went, man, this skill set that I built up, it's not just for real estate. It's for any small business that's looking to finally crack through the clutter, because the previous decade was like all about getting online. As long as you got online, quick, easy, simple, cheap, that was like check the box, move on, right?
Right.
But now that everyone's online, that's not the answer anymore. Everyone's online. So now it's like, how do I actually crack through that clutter and convert, attract and convert visitors into actual clients? And that's the problem that most people had and still have, is their website doesn't work. Their online marketing doesn't work. It doesn't actually produce ROI and results. So up popped the name Carrot. Website's just a carrot, not a brochure. It's a carrot that someone should latch onto. And I felt, man, I can really serve a lot of real estate investors, real estate agents with this. And maybe someday we can go into other markets to serve all of small business. So that led us to where we are today.
Yeah. And I mean, I know a lot of investors, I know a lot of people, myself included, that started with Carrot as an easy plug and play solution to get started. Mm-hmm. Right. Once you get started, now, like right now, we're building out a new site for my company. Right. And, there's different ways that you can maximize it, but to get started, you're touching a ton of people, mm-hmm. And helping people to get online on the online marketing space without knowing necessarily what to do. I can tell you that I'm not an online marketer, mm-hmm. not my style. I haven't put any time in learning it. I don't want to learn it really. That's why I hired you, right? But you're helping a ton of people, and I think the impact that you have for that is massive. I mean, it's massive. So, where are you at today? Exactly. I mean, are you where you thought you would be? Are you ahead of where you thought you would be? And what does the next 5 years for Carrot look like?
Dude, that's a good question, because it's funny. I think we all start businesses for different reasons, but there's like a bucket of probably 4 or 5 reasons that are pretty universal. One of the reasons is you've got your back against the wall and you need to build something to build a new income or to prove something to somebody. Another one is maybe you're actually trying to go out there and like solve a problem. And oh, by the way, it's a great business opportunity. For me, it was running away from an old way of doing business. Like I didn't enjoy the way I'd created my company, the previous one. So this one, it was mainly just an experiment to go, can I build a company that like that I'm happy with and that helps me work within my unique abilities? And can I build a company that truly makes an impact? And that's all it was, dude. So year one, I mean, literally Carrot was just, I'm going to focus on one thing finally. I usually had like 5 or 6 things going on. I'm focused on just one thing this year and see how well I can do on one thing, because I've been half-assing it on 6 things for my whole life. And so that was all that year one was. I didn't have any goals, no goals, like other than let's see if we can build something that people want. And let me see if I can look back at the end of this year just going, okay, I want to look back knowing with conviction I did the best I could possibly do at everything in my life. The best husband, the best father, the best friend, the best son, best brother, and the best entrepreneur. And the only way you can do that is by focusing on fewer things. So year 2,
all about focus.
It is, man. And then year 2 is when goals started to pop up. Year 2 was like, whoa, like this is working. Let me do it for another year and see what we can do. And by halfway through that year, I'm like, okay, now the challenge is I want to be the best in the world with this. Like, I don't want to be second. I want to be the best in the world. And I believe we did become the best in the world for the real estate investor space specifically, at what we do. And then after that, it's like, okay, I think maybe someday we can get to 1,000, maybe 1,500 active investors working with us. And today we're just under 5,000. So we've grown not because we're trying to grow financially. We've grown because I think we've solved the problem better than anyone else. And the results show for it. And when you see so many people getting that result, so many people get attracted to that and go, okay, I want to use the tool that gets that result, which is kind of working against us now, honestly, where there's so many people using Carrot. Now we're having to come up with ways. You're going through our concierge program right now, like you mentioned, to really dial in and personalize your site even more. Because when you have so many people using it in an industry, then some people kind of have a fallacy thinking, well, shoot, if this person's using it, or these 7 people in my market are, then maybe I shouldn't. But at the end of the day, you should always look at the tool or the resources or the plan that's working. Like what's actually working in this market? Cool. That's working. Carrot's clearly working. And now you need to go, how do I just personalize it and build my own thing around that and execute better than anyone else in my market? And that's fun.
Yep. Absolutely. And when you're growing like that, you're right. You touched on it, that you're helping people. You've been able to impact a lot of people and help people to get to the goals that they want to get to. And just naturally that turns into you hitting your goals, or actually 5Xing, it looks like, your goals, right? Mm-hmm. Which is massive. So how many years has Carrot been around?
We're in our 5th year, man. So it's kind of crazy. I mean, it feels sometimes like we've been doing this for a lot longer than 5 years. And sometimes it feels like it's just been like a snap.
So in this 5-year time period, you've gone from a thought or a process that's just in your own head to servicing almost 5,000 people. So what does the next 5 years look like? We know Tony Robbins says that people underestimate what they can do, or overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 5 years.
Yep.
I think that's his saying. What does Carrot look like in the next 5?
Yeah, it's interesting, Scott. So we've been talking a lot about that over the last couple of years. What is our end game here? And the biggest thing that we're pumped about is, number one, there's a lot more people we can help. Like even in the real estate investor space, there's hundreds of thousands of real estate investors, doing all different types of investing. So we are going to be serving people in other investing strategies. So multifamily and things like that, right. Mobile home. We're going to be diving into more of those strategies to help serve our clients that are already investors. Real estate agents. So that was something where we never really intended in that first year or two to go into the agent market. But then by year 3, we were like, man, we really need to help agents too, because so many of our clients are agents and investors, and they were using Carrot, for the investment side and having really good results, better than anything that they'd ever used. And then they'd say, hey, when are you guys going to make something for agents? Because I hate, my agent site, and I hate that it doesn't do X, Y, Z. And so it took way too long for us to create this. It's just another business lesson. If you create a revenue model around like certain things being key to that revenue model, you better staff the darn revenue model to make sure that it gets built and to make sure that it gets supported. And I didn't do that. I'm like, hey, this is where, agent Carrot's gonna be a big part of our revenue model. And then we didn't staff it. We're like, hey, let's pull 2 hours from this person a week and 3 from here. So finally we staffed it with full-time people. It's just a big lesson. But we're going to dive really deep into the agent world and help a ton of real estate agents, because man, the real estate market this next 3 to 5 years is going to be wild. Like, I'm not talking wild up and down swings. I'm talking technology is coming in and disrupting the crap out of stuff. You have Open Door and all that, but then you've got Zillow going out there and saying they're buying home zone. You've got these other things doing that. You've got technology disrupting the way that leads are being generated, the way that houses are being bought and sold, and combine that with whatever's going to happen in the real estate market in the next 2 to 5 years. I think you're going to have a lot of real estate agents in specifics, but investors too, just crapping their pants because they're not sure what to do. And they're not getting ahead of these changes. And what we've found is, in my opinion, the best way to insulate yourself from that stuff, from technology, and also from competition, is by being a business that has unique selling propositions that are different than what those technology solutions or the big agents or the big investors can provide. And you do that with content. You do that with like actually building a real company, and then really standing for something, like actually standing for something, and then putting out consistent content like you're doing with this podcast, so people can learn about you, and they can you're built up as an expert. And whenever they're searching for something in this realm of, hey, I'm looking to buy a home on the river, if you're the real estate agent who has done all the content on that, and you have a whole series on buying river homes in North Umpqua River, and you've got this and you've got that, you've got a website dialed in to support the content, you've got your credibility in there, Zillow can't copy that.
No.
Zillow can't copy that. And the bigger agents and investors for some reason aren't willing to put in that work for the most part. So that's that next 5 years. We're going to go really deep into content marketing. We're actually revamping our entire product this next 12 months for investors as well, to be more based around, here's a marketing suite that integrates all of your online marketing into one spot. And then we have different content marketing products that are coming out as well. And then we're going to be I can't really give the details on it, but we're going to be giving you more of the front to back online inbound marketing solution to not only attract, convert, but also manage and follow up with all those leads too.
Phenomenal, man. I'm really excited to see that. And I think that's a really good segue going into our lightning round. Are you ready for a lightning round?
Let's do it, man. Let's do it.
What is your hashtag invest this tip to keep our listeners moving forward?
Man, I think the biggest thing is you got to get around people that can pull you up and that you can pull up. Me, this last 3 weeks, I was in those 3 masterminds, and I can tell you, it's not just about thinking bigger; it's about thinking better. So get around the right people, because as markets change and as you struggle, it's the people around you are going to pull you up. Make sure it's the right people, though.
Yeah, I mean, that's huge. The masterminds are huge for that reason. I was just actually the same thing in a couple of masterminds this last couple of weeks, and you get in that room and you're like, you walk in there with your head held high and you're boasting how well you're doing, and then you hear what everybody else is doing. You're like, real quick, you stink, right? It's like, wow, there is bigger possibilities out there. But because you're in that room and because you're thinking or hearing how everybody else is thinking, you grow as a person, both personally and professionally, and ultimately you're going to get a lot better. So all the listeners out there thinking about getting into a mastermind, stop thinking, just go do it.
Even if it's a local one, right? Like here in my offices, we have a mastermind once a month for the people that rent from me in my office space, and they're all amazing people. And then also, last thing, you don't have to pay for it, y'all. Like, go find a good mentor. Me and one of my mentors, Seth Bueckley, an amazingly successful entrepreneur, man of faith, like the whole thing. Him and I get together every Friday for an hour and just talk about how's life going, how's business going, stuff like that. So there's different layers and levels of it. Just find ways to get around the right people.
Absolutely. What is a favorite book you've ever read? And you mentioned it earlier in the call. So what is it? What impact did it have?
Yeah, man. So the one I've been sharing with the most people, I've read so many amazing books, but this one keeps coming back, is most people are doing way too many things. And when you can focus on one thing and focus on it really, really hard, you can grow something really big and meaningful. So the book called The Pumpkin Plan by Mike Michalowicz, I stumbled across that when I had so many things going on, so much clutter in my life, that this book, literally page 1 through 16, you can get that chapter for free online. Just go to Google. You have no excuse if you don't have any money, y'all. Go to Google and type The Pumpkin Plan PDF, and it'll give you chapter 1. Read that, and his analogy of how pumpkin farmers grow those world champion huge pumpkins and how it relates to business hit me in my core. And anytime I get too overwhelmed, anytime I feel like I'm going off the tracks, I go through the process he talks about and I get back on track.
That's huge, man. Never heard of that book before, but I'm going to jump on and order that because it sounds like it's very important.
That's good.
Who's given you the best advice that you've ever been given? What has that impact been?
Man, same thing. I've been given so much great advice over the years that if I were to just peg one, little nugget from someone, I think it'd be unfair. But there was one recently, and I actually made a quote picture about it this past week, so it's fresh in my mind. But I really, really love this quote, and I heard this piece of advice from a friend just recently, because as I'm going out there really trying to figure out what is my next phase and how do I lead my team well, it's all about being yourself and not trying to be a copy of anyone else. So the way that the quote goes is, you were born an original, don't die a copy. And for me, that's so, so important, because like you mentioned, you walk into masterminds or you listen to a podcast like this, or you see someone on Instagram or Facebook, and it's so easy and so tempting for us to try to project our wants and our desires and needs on a fake version of this utopia that you see from someone else's life. When on the inside, they might be amazing on business, but their marriage is failing. Right. Or they might have this amazing, looking family on Instagram, but then you go back in there and the person's not present with their kids ever because they're always on their phone. So make sure that you are, every single person on here, however you were made, like that is, you go all in on you. Don't try to be someone else. And that advice has really, really served me. And I'm going to be pushing forward pretty hard in that, moving forward too.
Gosh, that's such a true statement. Fantastic advice. Thank you for sharing that to all the listeners out there, because, even when you're let's say you're trying to start a business, the majority of the people listening to this podcast are real estate related people, right? Yep. Investors, agents, lenders, whoever it might be. And you're always trying to find, okay, how do I get started? What do I do? And you're having to kind of copy people at the very beginning, right? Just to kind of get started. But as time goes on, then you learn that you have your own voice and you can go out and do your own thing. And so that's massive advice. Thank you for sharing that.
And so what you said there, I just want to be clear for people. What you said there is is you talked about modeling strategies. That's very, very valid, dude. Like people should model strategies. That's a way that you really cut that learning curve. You should model what Scott's doing because it's working, and do that. But then be yourself as you're doing it. Use your own character, use your own background, use what's great about you and amplify that. Because what's great about Scott, you probably don't have traits that Scott has or a background that he had, but you can still model his strategies that work for him in business.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for clarifying that. How do you like to give back, Trevor? With all the success that we have, right? What is the best way that you give back?
Yep, two things. There's one obvious that's like when you're blessed with really good finances, obviously you can find really good ways to give back. Here at Carrot, I'd always pressured myself for finding like the perfect cause. It's like, I want the perfect cause before we like put a bunch of money in there. And what would happen was, because we're looking for perfection in our causes, we would never end up giving to big stuff. It would be like little things here and there. So we finally decided at Carrot at the start of this year to create an official giving program. And we're going to be sending out an email here the next couple of weeks about a big give we just recently made that, we're just crazy pumped about the impact they're making. But we give a percentage of our gross revenue every single quarter now. And our team is involved in choosing where that goes. And we're really impacting our local community, man. We're going to be giving probably $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 to our local community to causes that amplify our core values. That's a bit of advice I would suggest everyone do, is determine your core values as a business, and as a person. They should be very similar. They should be very intertwined, and find causes that amplify that. Number two, the way that I love to give back, we only have so much time, but I really, really do like, it pumps me up to be able to do this. It pumps me up to be able to mentor people. And so Seth Bueckley, my friend, he started something he calls Free Lunch Friday. And it was a way for him to ensure that he has time for anyone that wants to connect with him and ask him questions and that he can mentor. So every Friday that he's in town, he has a lunch meeting, and anyone can email his assistant and get on the calendar. It might not be for 6 months, but you can get on the calendar, and you just have to have lunch downtown. You pay for lunch and you get 90 minutes of his time. So doing things like Free Lunch Friday, creating mentorship opportunities, or just creating opportunities that we can do this and share what we've learned, so we're not selfish in our wins and our losses as we go on this entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, that's huge. That's massive. I love that idea of Free Lunch Friday. And yeah, we've had all this success and have it all stuck in our heads. It'd be a shame. And it's really, I think, our duty to share it, right? Mm-hmm. Our duty to give that information back. There's plenty to go around. This world is full of abundance. And so, to get out there and be able to share what's working for you to maybe help somebody get to their next level is massive. So thank you.
Exactly.
How can the listeners reach you if they want to learn more about Carrot, or learn more about you, or if they're in your market and they want to do Free Lunch Friday for you?
Yeah.
Get in touch with you.
Sweet. Yeah. First thing is just probably go to oncarrot.com. So oncarrot.com. You can find all about Carrot over there. We have a lot of free information, content, blog posts that go out twice a week. And also, if you guys are listening to this, you must like podcasts. I've got my own podcast called the Carrot Cast. Carrot Cast. You can find it on iTunes. And that's kind of my personal outlet, Scott, man. Like I'm recording not only interviews with amazing clients, but I'm also just recording my inner thoughts. Like I did one on my drive back last night from the airport after my 2 weeks of travel, just kind of digesting, my current journey as an entrepreneur. So go check out the Carrot Cast, and you can follow me on Instagram too. Just find Trevor Mauch.
That's huge. So we're going to make sure that we include all that in the show notes. So all the listeners out there, go check out the show notes for that information. And thanks again for being here, man. You shared a lot of information about your journey so far. It's kind of crazy to think you've only been doing this for 5 years, but the amount of progress that you've been able to achieve in those 5 years and the amount of people that you're helping, the impact you're making on people's lives is massive, and you should be very proud of that, as I know that you are. And, I look forward to staying in touch with you and watching you guys grow over the next 5 years and seeing how many people you can impact at that point. So,
dude, that means a lot, and I appreciate it. And I'll finish on this one thing where everyone listening to this, what Scott mentioned, he didn't mention money, he didn't mention finances, he mentioned impact. And as long as you guys are focusing your business on the people that you're actually serving and not just the dollar. Now, if your back's against the wall, the dollar is important because you can't do your best work if you're always scraping by for money. So learn those strategies from Scott, but then immediately make sure that you're focusing on the person you're helping and how can you help more. The funny thing is you end up making way more money when you do that versus thinking about money as your primary goal moving forward. So I appreciate you noticing that, man. And thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely, yes. Actually, one of my mentors told me a long time ago, when you go to chase the money just gets up and runs. So stop.
Yep.
It'll come right to you.
I love that quote, man. I love it.
Anyways, appreciate you being here, man. We'll talk to you real soon.
Hey, thank you very much.
Okay, see ya.
Yep.
Make sure to like, subscribe, and share this podcast to help us spread the word. Go ahead and reach out to Scott Bauer on all the social media outlets for suggestions on topics and guests for the show. And check out investthispodcast.com for more secrets and resources to achieve real success in real estate.